Hey there, my name is James Lee. Welcome to 5149, my weekly video blog where I talk about business, politics, and society. Today, I'm going to lay out what I think is the truth about voter suppression in the United States. And it's quite simple. Both parties, Republican and Democrat, engage in voter suppression, but they do so in slightly different ways. Let me explain. The GOP, the Republican Party, they have this notion, this assumption that they can't win, or at the very least, they don't do as well in elections when more people show up to vote. So as a result, most of the Republican-backed election integrity laws, such as the one that just passed in Georgia, are about making it harder for people to vote. And to be fair, one or two of the provisions might hold water. A tiny bit of water, like requiring a voter ID to make sure you are who you say you are when you're voting. Most Western democracies, including Norway, Germany, Switzerland, and France, require an ID to vote. But most other provisions are just bogus ways to make it just that much harder to vote. Provisions like shortening the window to request ballots, shortening early voting periods, limiting ballot drop-off boxes, and making it illegal to pass out food and water to voters in line. Like, come on, man, any sensible person can tell you that none of those things make our elections more secure. It just makes participating in them just that much more inconvenient. Now, Democrats, on the other hand, they're acting under the assumption that if they can get people out to the polls, they're going to vote for them, or more accurately, vote against a Republican. So their voter suppression strategy typically involves limiting choice on the ballot. One of the big efforts they undertake every year is keeping the Green Party off the ballot in as many states as possible. I mean, keeping it real, it's not just the Green Party. They don't want any third parties on the ballot at all. Another example of this, in 2019, New York City voters approved a referendum to adopt ranked choice voting. But a group of Democrats are now suing to halt the introduction of ranked choice voting, including a prominent Democratic candidate for mayor, Eric Adams. So the truth is, our political leaders from both parties are obsessed more with maintaining power than maintaining democracy, and they try to do so in their own unique way. And the funny thing is, these tactics that they think are so clever don't necessarily even work that well. Last April, when Wisconsin Republicans made the political calculation to hold an election during the pandemic because they figured fewer people would turn out to vote, they suffered a massive loss. Ben Wickler, chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, said, "Voter suppression might not be as clever as Republicans think it is. It can backfire by pissing voters off." And personally, I have a gut feeling that this will be the case upcoming in Georgia as well, because some of the election laws passed there are quite egregious. Same goes for the Democrats. 2020 saw a massive spike in voter turnout, 62% compared with just 54.8% in 2016. And sure, Biden won the White House and they eked out a win in the Senate, but they didn't retake a single state house and actually unexpectedly lost ground in the House of Representatives. I know what you might be thinking, James, isn't one party worse than the other though? And the answer is yes, Republicans are a little bit worse, but maybe the bar shouldn't be set so low. Like this new voting rights bill, H.R. 1, called the For the People Act. Okay, I know the bill has some good provisions, so much so that the right-wing propaganda machine has been unable to convince the public to dislike it, and Republicans have pretty much resorted to gutting it behind the scenes, with a senior Koch operative admitting that opponents would be better off ignoring the will of American voters and trying to kill the bill in Congress. But I have to say, the name For the People Act sketches me out a little bit because it reminds me of something like the Patriot Act, which definitely was not patriotic. Anyway, the bill, while it does address those Republican voter suppression techniques that I just talked about, it doesn't cover others, like leveling the playing field for third parties. For example, right now, Arizona requires only 6,000 signatures to appear on the ballot if the candidate is running as a Republican or a Democrat, but 37,000 if running as an independent. That's not real democracy. And one final thought I'd like to leave you with, something that I've talked about before, comes from the Knight Foundation's 100 Million Project, a study commissioned to understand why people don't vote. The fact of the matter is, non-voters are not homogenous. They aren't a monolith. They're actually quite diverse. We always think, or at least I have the perception, that non-voters are low income, uneducated, or don't care, but that's not really the case. More than 1/3 of the non-voting group are college graduates and above. It's kind of fascinating because it makes this group of people kind of unpredictable. I mean, our politicians could look to do something to earn people's votes, except
they're all on the payroll, they're all sucking the teat.
Right, so for those who currently hold power, they might talk a big game about how important democracy is and how they want more voter participation, but most of them would probably rather not open up this can of worms and jeopardize their current standing. And that is voter suppression in a nutshell. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, if you can, Give me a little boost and hit that like button. Share this video with your friends, family, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Discord, wherever. That would be awesome. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing and clicking on that notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. My name is James Lee. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next week.